Now, we all love a good bit of images in rapid succession of one another, sometimes also called video, I've heard. And Godot is even able to put images together in video playback, albeit with outdated tech. Nils Zweiling is here today as a software developer creating interactive experiences, games and apps, and he will present VTG, also in full Video Toolkit for Godot, a plugin that brings the AV1 video standard to Godot. Please welcome to the stage Nils Zweiling.
Thank you very much. So my topic is here from Theora to AV1, transforming video workflows in Godot 4, ? Maybe. But before I dive deeper into that topic, who am I? My name is Nils Zweiling, and I consider myself as a coder, maker, and creator, and probably that more formally will be software developer and consultant. I'm self-employed, and I do mostly interactive projects, like interactive installations, and therefore I mostly use game engine technology. I used to work a lot with Unity. I used to work with Unreal Engine. But lately, I wrapped my head around Godot engine and started because I did it with a friend, our first project. But more to that later. So what am I doing? I'm doing for Attendees, did some interactive installation in their London store. I did Sample Robot together with a friend, which is a professional audio sampling application. I work for Royal Render, which is a render manager. And so on and so forth, just my website. And lately I came to the idea that video is nice, and together with another friend, I created this hardware project, open source hardware project called AV1, which is a open source hardware mixer, if you will. And it's open source, you can use it. That just for my background, and now how do I come to this here? And this is Window Arcade. That was a project I presented last year at GodotCon 2024. I feel like I see some familiar faces around here. And yeah, what is Window Arcade? Window Arcade is an application framework, if you will. Window Arcade leverages smartphones as controllers and allows for intuitive interaction with dynamic content, meaning you have such thing here, which is our own creation that we can travel around with. We have this demo application, which is called Island Racer. You can use it like this. You have the screen, you have a QR code and a smartphone. Scan the QR code, and then you can play a game or interact with whatever you have on that screen. And this is how it looked like last year at GodotCon. Our little trailer, because we were so proud that we were able to present that there. And as you see, you have a QR code. Robin Jan is scanning the QR code and then can play a game, which is sort of a super little tiny racer, but people said it was fun, and we think so too. So now we have also a 3-player mode, and we presented it at conferences. But now our vision is, okay, we have so many big screens everywhere on the streets, behind shopping windows, you name it, and what if we can combine that with linear content? So not only showing linear content on the one hand, but showing linear content, you approach this device, scan the QR code, and then you can interact with your favorite brand. Imagine you are at a Nike, Adidas, or whatever store. You see the new shoe, you can scan the QR code, and then you move from a cool brand video to something like an interactive experience where you can experience the shoe, the brand, the information. That is the vision. And so what we want to do, or what I want to do, is combining interactive content with high quality video. And that was the rabbit hole I went down. So what is the status quo of video in Godot right now? We have video playback capabilities in Godot. It is the video stream player node. It inherits from control. You can think of it as some sort of sprite 2D that is constantly updated with the current frame of the video, obviously. But there is a drawback. The only supported format is Theora, which is it's not bad per se, but it's a very old codec. So it is created by the XIF organization. It is the good thing. It is royalty free, but there are some catches with it. The export seems to be very buggy in certain applications. So the workaround is then exported as H.264 and then transcoded with FFmpeg. And also, it's not actively developed since 2010. And the funny thing is that I took a look at the FTP file server here where the releases are. And the alpha was released in 2010, and the beta is released in 2025. So there is probably just a maintenance release. And I feel like it could have something to do with Godot. I'm not sure. So the real catch is it has really, really large file sizes for high quality video, especially if you're going 4K, and there's no hardware decoding available for that. So not very up to date. I mean, it works, but not up to date. So what alternatives do we have? We have other extensions. We have the ERAR team FFmpeg plugin. It's FFmpeg based, and there is no hardware acceleration. The same goes for the GDE GoZen plugin, no hardware acceleration. And there's this reference implementation, which only has support for VP9 and also no hardware acceleration. Okay, so, and what about FFmpeg? How do we feel about FFmpeg as a dependency? Yeah, it is a cool library, but it is a very large dependency, as you might know. And it's LGPL, and that somehow prevents us using that when we want to steady link against it and use it in proprietary software, for example, on the App Store. So, and also, it's probably not a very good idea if we in the future, I don't know, this is just a suggestion, what I'm presenting here, but if we want to integrate something newer into Godot core, we probably don't want to depend it on FFmpeg. So what other codecs are there? There is H.264 and H.265, which are, very popular, but very not royalty free. And they are so this is what we call patent encumbered. They're a patent pool. They say, yeah, you're using this algorithm here and we have a patent on it, so give us your money. Not for everything. There's this use case where you can distribute H.264 videos free on the internet to your users, and you don't have to be, or you aren't charged royalties for that, but if you are creating devices or software that can read or produce those codec files, then you have to pay royalty fees as well. And it's very problematic with HEVC even more because, so open source projects like Fedora and OpenSUSE, they say, no, we can't do that, it's too problematic. We remove that from our Mesa build and OpenSUSE as well. So what does the Godot documentation say about this? They say H.264 and H.265 cannot be supported in core Godot as they are both encumbered with software patents. And so, yeah, that aligns with what I found. Alternative, AV1. So it is governed by the Alliance for Open Media. So always you always make a pact with the devil. You have Amazon, the leading companies in this alliance, Apple, ARM, Cisco, Google, Huawei. They all have patents in this patent pool, but they say you're free to use it, do what you want. But there's always a catch. External patent pools have claims, like the Syswill. I think Philips is part of that pool. They say, yeah, you cannot do that. We have also patents that are touched somehow by any algorithms in there, so we want money. So you better give us our money no matter what they say. But in reality, So it's very, very complicated, but in reality, this is probably the best we can get in terms of royalty freeness, because encoding videos, it is such a long history of algorithms that build upon each other. So if you really would want to create something that is truly royalty free, that would be very, very lucky guess, because there are so many patents, like over 2,000, 3,000 patents. So I think this is the best we can get for a modern codec. So the documentation says AV1 is royalty free, but it remains slow to decode on the CPU, and hardware decoding support isn't readily available on all CPUs in use yet. Yeah, that is partly true. I mean, but I think we moved on from there. There are good software decoders and also encoders. I'll come to that later. And there's also many current hardware devices and chips, they do have a dedicated hardware unit. Small list, I don't go through it all, but as you can see, M3 on the Apple, M3 and newer, A17 Pro, RTX 30, they all have dedicated units in their hardware. So it's going to be there. People are committing to this new format. Hardware coding is a little less, but it's coming. It's in RTX 40, and this seems to be a good bargain. You can get even Intel card for, I think, 100 to 150 euros that can really efficiently encode AV1. So what software decoders do we have? We have libaom, which is the reference implementation by the AOM group. Then we have David, which is created by the VideoLAN organization. Those guys are the ones who also create the VLC we all love and need to use very often. And the libg AV1, it's created by Google. So there are things available, and lately David has gotten some very good improvements from the ARM group, so it works very performant. And what about software encoders? We have the libaom, AV1, SAVT, AV1. So there are many, and they are all integrated into FFmpeg. And in this case, FFmpeg is not the problem, because you don't want to probably use software encoding in your software, in your game. I mean, you might probably, but so if you just want to use that as an external tool, we don't have to worry about FFmpeg. Okay, so what I did is I did some testing, so this is not representative at all, but to somehow get a gist of what you can do, this is on my Mac Mini M4 entry-level device, so nothing special. I encode the Sintel trailer, 1080p, 24 frames per second, and it's around 5 times real-time, the encoder. So it employs all the 10 cores available, but I mean, that's cool, I think. It's pretty fast for a software encoder. So I have no worries there. And if you want to go with 4K video like I'm showing here, it's encoding the Netflix Food Market, which is a demo made by Netflix because they are very interested in video streaming, as you can imagine. 4K 60 FPS. So this is encoded with, I would say, medium to good quality settings, and it's a third of real time, so but encoded with 20 frames per second, which is also pretty nice, I think, comparing that to years ago when we had to wait forever to get AV1 encoded. So, and the good news is that we also have support in Vulkan right now. We have these 2 extensions, we have decoding extension, encoding extension, and that makes for a really good foundation in my, for me, as I think that could be a really good foundation for a cross-platform hardware decoding support in Godot. But you always have to be aware this only works on dedicated hardware units. They need to have those AV1 specialized units. They cannot employ general purpose shader units. So, and also what really nice is that they merged the Vulkan encoding to FFmpeg 8, and so we can use it from there as well. So this is my suggestion. I call it Video Toolkit for Godot, VTG. I don't know, this is just a working title. I'm not sure that I will stick with that. What is Video Toolkit for Godot? It's a C++ GD extension. Abstract base class is video player, and what I imagine is to have some sort of software decoding as a baseline for all platforms. So in principle, it's like before. We have Theora. It works software decoded on each and every platform, but I would like to add AV1 as a software layer. And then go when hardware evolves and we get implementations there that we do hardware decoding on specific platforms where available. And the only formats supported would be for the software decoding. I feel like AV1. I used Opus as audio format. The container format is WebM. I'm not sure about that because it's not really specified, but it works. And I'm using in my proof of concept here, I'm using AV1, which is a thin wrapper library around David and libwebm. And AV1 is done in plain C. It cares about things like file loading, demuxing, decoding, threading, and optional color conversion if you want. I do that in shader because it's more efficient. But yeah, so we don't have to start from scratch. And that is implemented as video player soft. So this is how it looks like. So on the left side, you see the editor. I did a small plugin. Sorry for the very, very small video. I could have made it a little bigger at least. So it's the Sintel trailer playing right now, and you see it's software decoded 24 frames per second, and it's around about, I think, half a core here, and this one as well. And then I move on to the food market example, and that decodes, I mean, super fluently, but puts a little bit more pressure on the CPU. But I mean, it's okay. If you really want to have some sort of baseline that works on every platform, I'm probably okay for me if I'm using the Mac Mini in my installation and I still have lots of CPU power left. So that's the baseline, the fallback. What about hardware decoding? I think we can employ Video Toolbox on macOS. We can use Vulkan on Linux and Windows, and we could even support multiple formats. We can use AV1 as the default, but also H.264 and H.265. And you might say, yeah, but you told us about all these patent problems before. Yeah, but in this case, although I'm no lawyer, this is not a big problem because we're not providing the actual code to the user, because we would only use hardware with dedicated decoding units and APIs on top of it, and that and that will be the hardware companies would have to pay, like NVIDIA, Apple, they would have to pay these patent fees. And this is implemented as video player metal. And in the future, this would be video player Vulkan. So how does it work? I create two image textures, pass the native handles, in this case for the metal backend, put it into the decoder thread, and that continuously decodes and blitz just on the GPU, so nothing on CPU here. So now we have this little button here. I can enable hardware playback, press play, go to top, and then I can see that this is a bit much right now because it doesn't have the focus. Now it goes back to 30%, and this is 4K 60 FPS. So that's pretty nice. Roadmap, I go a little bit quicker about that. Software decoding at first, then hardware decoding on macOS and iOS because I already have this prototype that is working, and then move on to software decoding and hardware decoding on the rest of the platforms. So I haven't touched Vulkan yet, and I'm not sure if Godot has all the API necessary in the GD extension, but I'm sure I can figure that out, and maybe I can talk to the render backend creators of Godot. So my repository is just a proof of concept, MIT license, check it out. I'm happy to get feedback. So the conclusion is Theora is an old file format. It has large files for high quality, no hardware decoding whatsoever. I want to add modern codec support like AV1 as a GD extension and software decoding as a baseline. It works on every platform, and hardware decoding dependent on the render backend, and so that will be Metal and Vulkan. And I have one more thing. This is, sorry for the very crappy video here, but this is my side project which I want to use with the new plugin, and I'm so happy to show you this because it's a node-based video tool. So you can use video mixing tools. You can have a video playback, mix that. I mean, it's a very basic example right now, but I have a vision for it to have custom shaders, generative art. So think of it as a VJing tool. So you can sit on your couch, connect it to your external monitor, and then play around and be creative. And then create your own panel where you have sliders, mini screens that you can then call here and attach those sliders to some sort of mixing value here. And then you can create, you don't have to fiddle around while you're doing your VJing show. You don't have to fiddle around in your node. You can have your custom UI. And that's it for now, guys. I'm so happy that you were here and were listening to my talk. And yeah, give me feedback. This is my webpage. If you want to get in touch, LinkedIn, but I'm around, and thank you so much for listening. So, yeah.
Yeah, we now have 5 more minutes for Q&A if any questions arise from the audience. Yes.
Yeah, I think I was doing on Android, there's an EXO player that you can just plug in and it goes straight through. Maybe you can explain how that works to me at some point.
Sorry, the Excel?
There's an EXO player that can play straight through, and it doesn't even touch Godot and just puts a video stream straight into the game.
I don't know actually what the EXO player...
EXO.
I haven't heard that before, so I cannot tell you anything about that. For me, it's just to not to have any special solution for any special platform. What I think is what we need is to cover all platforms in the same way. So the software first, and then we can move on and to integrate certain hardware desires. So I'm sorry, I don't know about the EXO player, but yeah, maybe it's the alternative.
Any more questions from the audience? Yes. You need to talk into the microphone.
Any feedback on performance on mobile?
I have to say, I just started this project, so this is, I mean, I'm working on this for, I don't know, 2 months, but what I can say is that if you are on Apple devices, it would perform, even with a software version, pretty much along these lines here. And if you employ the dedicated hardware unit, then you won't see any impact on your CPU at all. And that would be the same with the Google devices, because I'm working mostly on Mac, but I know Google Tensor devices also would have the same performance. But then if we want to have that, I need to move on to the Vulkan backend. So, but then we would see very, very high performance results. Yes.
I think this has been it for questions. Nope, it has not.
I'm not too familiar with the different codecs, but what would the size difference be in terms of file size between the old version and the new one that you introduced?
That is a really good question. I cannot really answer that because there is so many different settings if you want to compare the quality. And you're right, I will do that. I know you really want to see the, but I can't tell. But I what I feel like is this, what I can tell you, the Sintel demo, which has really good quality and has a couple of seconds video, is just 9 megabytes. You wouldn't get that quality. You wouldn't get that quality in Theora. And but I hear you, and I will do some benchmarking so that people can really compare that to each other. Yeah.
And with that, we are at time. Again, please give another massive round of applause for this wonderful talk by Nils.
Thank you so much.